before we get started, uh, what I would want to say is when you talk about upskilling, it has a lot of things to do with your psychology, human psychology, and the best way explained when it comes to upskilling is when you can really link what you are learning with your real life examples, right? And that is what if you can do that effectively, you will be you'll be always upskilling, you'll be always learning, and you'll be remembering. As per psychology, what happens is you have a short-term memory and you have a long-term memory. And until and unless we link it with an already existing experience, it is always hard to remember. But when you try to link something with your previous learning, you can easily move the idea from your short-term memory to the long-term memory. Keeping that in mind, we will get started. And as we talk, we will actually, I'll be implementing a lot of those in our discussions. And you can actually figure out what I mean. So front-end upskilling. Let's get into some of it. Let's start with a very light note. Okay, so I think we have a mixed participants of boys and girls. So for boys, especially in teenage or early in college, right? It is interesting, or it is very fascinating to know the age of a girl. So once I went to a birthday party and I asked somebody, what is your age? And my parents gave me a real bad look. So they told me that you should never ask somebody her age. I said, okay. So I started finding out a different way of doing it. So I started asking at that point of time, let's have a small game, let's find out, how many revolution of art one has witnessed in one's life. The goal was simple, find the age, right? As things changed, life became easier. What we did is, you just change the question. The end goal remains the same. End goal is getting the age. So what do? You nowadays, if I can go and ask somebody who is maybe, who is working in software industry, I can say, well, how did you start your journey? Did you start with COBOL? Did you start with VB? Did you start with jQuery? Did you start with plain JavaScript? Typically, it gives me a range, right? So what I mean is that, even when we talk about front end, it remains the same. The goal is the same. What we have been trying for last 20 years is the same thing. How do you build an interface to meet the business requirement? What we have done is we have used different interfaces, different languages, different frameworks through which we achieve the same goal, right? So what happens is we have the data even then, we have the data even now. How do you present the data to a person matters? How do you make sure that the person sticks to your website or the application matters, right? And that is where it comes in. The second thing is, if you remember, the first question was quite complicated. At a lot of time, with my experience, the question bounced over many people's head. But the second question I asked was very simple, right? How did you start with your software journey? Did you start with jQuery or JavaScript and so on? The same way, what we have tried with framework is minimizing the code and with quality, which gives you the result in a minimal way, in a quality way. And of course, security. In both the cases, I didn't get slapped. People smiled, laughed with the type of question. I got my answer, right? In the similar way, when we develop a software platform, we always do it. We try to do it with a minimal code, with quality code, which is readable, which can be used by somebody else. Today, I am not there. Somebody else comes in, they can just expand it. They can they go through the code and they can find it out, right? And we want to make sure that, a simplest way of security compromise is that, you have a token, access token, and you store it in your local storage, for example, for people who are already into front-end development. Somebody, and you have not secured it. Somebody comes in, it opens a different tab. Not somebody, you open a different tab and you launch a website. And that has a script which reads your token. And of course, you can always find out what are the endpoints you're calling to. And they pick it up and start making a call. So you are hijacked, right? It's a CSRF attack. So we make sure that those things are covered, right? With time, we have learned, we have really moved on. The other thing is, when I started off, it was all about Internet Explorer, to be very honest, and you can make out my age. So, but over a time we had so many options. We have Internet Explorer is gone; it's Edge now, and now you have Chrome, which is mostly used, right? And you have Firefox, which is very developer friendly. So this is the goal, and this is what we are going to discuss about how we upskill. The second thing, we'll go back again a little more into the philosophy and psychology, how human mind works, right? And how I have been able to upskill myself. If you really look through from all the way from plain JavaScript all the way to AI, it's a long journey. So how did I do? What helped me is what we are going to talk about. So let's get started. I always believed that there are three heavens, right? And of course, it comes from, it's not my words, it comes from the old mythologies. So there is the first heaven that I'm going to talk to is something which we all try to achieve in one way or the other. And especially the previous generations, they really wanted that. And that is to be content. You are content with what you have. I have a house, I am content. I have a car, which is good enough. It's a Maruti 800 or an Alto now. So, and I am content. I'm happy with my life. It does not work in software industry at all. If the day you are content, you're done. Right. The second one is very interesting. The second one is about where a lot of us, majority of us, are running, which is primarily about false happiness, where we take a loan, we build a house, and we keep paying the EMIs, of course, and we build the stress at the back end. And so on, right? If you link this with the software industry, what you do is, I always go through CVs, hundreds of CVs, and I see people put in so many things which they really don't want. They don't know anything ABC about it, right? And we shortlist those, and we get into an interview. And sometimes what happens is we continuously scan the CVs when we are actually interviewing. So all of a sudden, we'll ask you a question about a particular topic which you have no clue about, but you have put it in your CV, and that's done. You have managed a good. You could be, you could be good with the other things, but one or two questions which hits your weak points can really cost you a job. Or the other instances, there are a lot of times when what happens is people really manage to, especially during the pandemic time, people tried managing, they're all online interviews. People try to get things working, but when and they got a job, but when they came in, you figure out that, okay, this guy is not what we really thought about. And you start losing it. Everything falls. And that is the second heaven, which we should never try. The third one is where the third one is about reincarnation, and the best reincarnation example is Lord Vishnu, right? And I don't want to go into the religion though, but you have, Rama, you have Krishna, and so on. If you realize that, when there was a serious need of a powerful a ruler was needed, it was Rama, right? When there was a need of some for a destruction, or make sure that the ethics and everything is established back, right? It was Krishna, and so on. This is what we really need. You need to understand the change, and you need to change yourself constantly. Our inclination is always going to be one or two, but you have to consciously make sure that you are thinking of the third heaven always. And the day you stop doing that, again, you hit one or two, and then your decline starts. Keeping this in mind, let's move on. So when I talk about building the heavens, right? And one of the things that, before I move to this slide, I will talk about few things. If I start talking about all the technologies I have worked, I am sure half the participants at this point of time, at this time of the day, are going to sleep. And nowadays the technology really changes. It's faster than the fuel price that we have, right? And we just got a hike on fuel price. So what I did, and this like typically speaks about what I have done all my life. How did I upskill myself? So what I have really focused on is taking a dip in Ganga, in Haridwar, and not in Calcutta. What it means is that, when it comes to front end, I have never really focused on a platform or a framework to start with. Or even if you talk about AI, I'm not going to jump into some framework and start with SageMaker in AWS, right? I will start with Python. So in this case, what happens is, what I would say is the strongest base that you make at this part of the career, especially in your early career, is going to take you a long way, right? So there are three things. I will repeat it a number of times during this presentation. If it is front end, you need to master JavaScript. There is no second thoughts about it. You need to know HTML and CSS very well, but JavaScript is where you'll be asked questions about. So build your strong base, build your JavaScript knowledge very well. Understand how JavaScript works, how the browser reads it, how the memory is handled, and of course I have a slide about it going forward. The second thing is, we all enjoy Friday parties, and including me, I have been Elon Musk during Friday parties after a couple of drinks. So what happens is, you go on a Friday party with your friends, and you are focusing on building your foundation. Somebody comes and says, what are you doing? Are you really learning JavaScript at this age, to that level? See, I'm doing React. I have created a page. See how attractive it looks. I have created something on Angular. And what happens is, you go home and you think, what am I doing? And you start, diverting your mind into the frameworks. And you start thinking, let me okay, keep it aside. That will come along, and I'm going to work on React. And you start browsing, right? We have all the information in our fingertip at this point of time, and you start thinking about it. What you have done is you have missed out on the core. You got distracted. In the interviews, the frameworks question comes later. Your concept comes first, right? So make sure when you beat anything, you are learning front end, back end, or anything, make sure that once you decide this is the I'm not talking about Ganga 3, I'm talking about Haridwar, which is a good place. So when you have decided this is going to be my foundation, stick to it, right? My foundation was very simple. I started my foundation. I had a very strong foundation on C++, and all I had to do is figure out how it is done in Java, how is it done in Python, and similarly on the front end. The other thing that you have to really think about is your interest. In corporate, what happens is, there are times where you really do HTML, you do CSS, and you also do the scripting, right? JavaScript or writing the Angular logics or React logics. In many times, what happens is you really focus on designing. You are more focused on the CSS and HTML. That is one thing that you know. But if you really want to go broader, increase your market reach, it is always better to expand and look to become a full stack developer. For in my time, it was very difficult. You start with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. What happens is, to go to backend, I need to know Java at the least, right? And they are very different. The concepts are different. The way things work is different. The coding is different. Everything is different. But now it is so easy, right? With Nodejs as coming up as a very strong backend. It's scripting, right? You use JavaScript, you can write TypeScript, and then you are done. So when you really have a strong base, again, as I say, think about spreading your wings always. And this is going to help you in the long run. And this is also linked with thinking about change and adapting to changes. Okay, so before I move on, right? So I summarize this, what we spoke again. First thing is, always try to build on your learning, build a very strong base and add to it. If you don't have a strong base, you don't have anything to add to it. Second thing is, reduce distraction when you are building your base. Make sure you are focused. Think about your journey. It's not your friend's journey or somebody else's journey. It is your journey, how you want to shape it, right? And I'm giving you an example. I've been in this industry working with multiple things, and this is what I have done. Okay, let's get into our audience poll. So Karan, how are you going to do it? Should I just speak, or we are going to put a poll?
Whenever you like to do that, Mani, so we can pull out the poll right now.
Yeah, we can pull out the poll.
Just give us a quick second. So to the audience, you'll see a poll on screen right now. Appreciate it if you can answer the question. Which of these frameworks has the maximum number of openings currently in India? So if you can pick one of the options, this will be open for the next 15-20 seconds. Just a couple of seconds more, and we should be closing the poll in about 5 seconds. Done, Mani, over to you.
Sure. I'm just trying to find out where the poll is. The results are okay. I think maximum of you got it right. It is React. It is React which has the largest, the maximum number of opening. But let's as we move on, let's start discussing a little more about it. So React is the answer, which is correct and great for people who already know it. So when I talk about the technical trends that I see, right, which is going to be helpful to know in 2022, and also a little bit of focus, which is going to be in the next year as well. The React is number one, right? As I said, React has the maximum number of opening. A lot of companies are moving towards React. The second is jQuery. And why do I have jQuery? jQuery is very, very old. The first time I have used jQuery it's over 10 years now, or maybe more, right? And why do we still have so many openings? It's not because it is a trending technology. It is primarily, if you look into year over year, it is going to decline. But at this point of time, this year, it is going to be there. There are many companies, it's a lot of cost that involves when you migrate a platform from one to the other, because you have to rewrite everything. Many companies don't. So they still develop a lot of application on the features, I would say, right, on the existing application which are written in jQuery, and that is how we still have a lot of openings even now. But if you really look for a longer trend, this is going down. It is going to go down by another 2-3 years. It will be lower. But many companies, for example, banking doesn't really like changing their tools very easily, right? They continue to use. Why do I have Ember and Vue? Vue is coming up very, very fast, right? And Ember too. Though we don't have many job openings at this point of time, but I won't be surprised that it really takes things over in a short time. Okay, now if you look into the slide, and let's go a little bit strategic about it, right? What can I do if I am an Angular developer, for example? I have around a scope of reaching out to in India around somewhere a little over 25,000 openings currently, right? If I am a React, I have an option of applying to somewhere around 45,000 open positions at this point of time, and Vue is quite low. jQuery is good, but something that I really won't. If it is a real need of a job, it's fine, but I would not myself put jQuery as my core strength and apply for something. And you have Ember, which is going to come up, right? But we'll keep focusing on this year as we move. So if you look into things, we have Angular, you have React, and you have Node. I have added Node because though it is a backend technology, it is done through JavaScript or TypeScript, right? It is scripting. So if you look into Angular, again, I don't want to repeat this, but I'm adding this here because if you know Java, or TypeScript, JavaScript or TypeScript, you can write Node.js code, right? And it is a very, very easy transition for you towards a full stack developer. On the right side of this slide, let's look into the options that I have. Again, going back, if I just apply for Angular, I'll be able to apply something around 25,000 odd jobs. React is a little higher, and if I am just a Node developer, I can be here. But if I can mix Angular and React, my scope of applying reaches quite high, right? It doubles up. It's above 60,000 now. And if I just add these three together, right? And I can be a full stack developer, which is around it's over 120,000 open position in our country at this point of time, right? And this is interesting. And why I am bringing all this thing together, because if you have your base clear, moving to any of this is very easy. Okay, let's get into some of the concepts and why we use what. Now, when you are building your foundation, and I'll come to Angular and rest of them, but before I start, when you build your foundation, the core thing that you really need to look, or there are a number of things, of course, but I have taken some of the main things that you need to understand and know it very well, is how JavaScript is read by browser, right? How memory allocation happens. You need to know the basic manipulation of string or operator and data structures. There was a question I just joined the last session at the end. Is data structure important? Yes, it is. Right? There are at least there are quite a number of data structure, but if I really think about it, there are 6 to 8 which we use quite a lot, and you need to know those very, very well. Okay, in JavaScript, I'm talking about. HTML and CSS, they are easier. CSS is good. It is evolving. There are framework as well. But most of the time, at least for me, wherever I have worked so far, we have not really used much of a framework for CSS. We have used plain CSS. Okay, let's move on. Now, why Angular, where it is used, right? Angular is very, very good for enterprise level applications, which is not a single page. It's not a website. It is an application. We use extensively. Delta.com is on Angular, by the way. So, and the reason it is in Angular is because, there is a number of heavy lifting that happens. Yeah, though, you just go and purchase a ticket. It is not like that. It is a lot of to and fro that keeps happening in the backend and for front end as you buy, right? When I was with GE, we developed a product which is being primarily used in Port of LA, Los Angeles. That was again in Angular, primarily because those are applications which are enterprise level and very, very complex in nature, right? It is feature rich. It is very easy to. You might feel that I have an inclination towards Angular a little more, but that's okay. The feature rich, a lot of things are inbuilt. You don't have to really import libraries. You don't have to do anything. When you have Angular, they just come along with it. Now, Angular is based on TypeScript. There is a learning curve, but TypeScript is not different. If you really know JavaScript, it really helps you. It's ultimately a script, right? There is a learning curve, and in both React and Angular, you have a learning curve. But if you're, again, as I say, if your base is good, this is going to be an easy curve. So when you learn Angular, you'll also focus on TypeScript because you write code in TypeScript. Though when you compile the entire code, it becomes JavaScript. Okay, so it is on TypeScript, which is also a stepping stone for Node.js. Why do I say you can write Node.js in JavaScript also? But why I am talking about TypeScript at this point of time, it's a good way to migrate to Node.js. Primarily because if you are working on cloud, or primarily you are working on APIs which does both synchronous and asynchronous activities. JavaScript does not support that, right? And TypeScript does support that. So to give you an example, I want to fetch a data from a database and give it to the customer, right? I also, in the meantime, I also want to have some details logged into the database in a different table, right? Which is not directly linked with customer, but it is for my uh, tracking what is going on, what is coming into me, what is going out, and so on, right? I make an async call. So there are two threads kind of structure which is running at this point of time. In JavaScript, those are hard. That is where when you're writing Node, it becomes easier. And Angular gives you that option, right? This is the stepping stone. The best thing I like about Angular compared to any of the others is that your CSS, HTML, and TypeScript, they are separate files. It is easy for somebody who are starting up that way, because okay, this is where my everything goes, and it is by Google. So the community is strong, documentation are very good. Some of the companies which are using Google itself uses, of course, Delta, GE, Cisco, PayPal, Forbes, Microsoft Office, they are all on Angular. Okay. The second thing that we'll talk about is React by Facebook, right? So they use JavaScript, right? But what happens is they have modified it a little, and you have syntax extension. By this, it helps interact with the browser a little better. It also supports TypeScript, but the problem with React and TypeScript is the community of people using TypeScript and React is very less. So if you are stuck, getting a help is not going to be as easy if you are on a JavaScript framework and you are working with React. It is best suited for single page applications. That is how not everyone builds huge enterprise application always, right? But the number of openings shows up much higher because it's a good one for single page application, websites, everything. Those things are pretty good. Of course, you can build, but it can get nasty as well. And people do that, right? People do build. The problem that I really don't like about React is your scripting or your logic and your HTML are in the same file, right? And it was not initially that popular until unless Airbnb and Netflix joined this community, and that is how things started working in this favor, right? And then the community increased and the support increased. Facebook, Netflix, Uber, Walmart, Airbnb, Dropbox, Salesforce, Instagram. These are some of the areas where React is used heavily. And now, let's move to the next one, which has a low number, but is coming up very well, and it is Vue. Now, Vue was invented or founded by Evan You. Evan You was actually working with Google. He was a Google employee working on the Angular project. What he did is he combined Angular, the good part of Angular and React, and came up with this language, right? This is good for two things. One is for single page application. Another thing is you can build small components and push it in your existing projects. And it is fast, right? So this is one area where your learning curve is the least. It supports plain JavaScript very, very well. And of course, it supports TypeScript as well as the JSX, right? But this is another way. The big difference between, I'll go a little bit technical out here. Big difference between React and Vue is this. So when a let me look into the time. Okay, when a page comes to the browser, right? You have a DOM, which is a document structure, right? Document object model. It's a tree structure, and you read it top to bottom every time. What React does is, it creates a virtual DOM and presents that to you. But if you make a change, it compares it everything again, top to down, and then does it. It does it fast because it's a virtual DOM. But what Vue has solved is that, instead of going and reading it top to down every time, it starts tracking the objects inside those structure. So it makes it faster and lighter, right? The problem again, it's in the same file. The component is separate, of course. It's very, very easily integratable. Now, if you look into the same thing, Google, Facebook, Netflix, they are all again using Vue, right? They create small components which are fast, and all the new components that are coming up in Facebook, they're not changing Facebook completely. Google is not changing everything, but these new features which are small and you need to push it fast, create a component and just integrate with the current thing. Everyone is using Vue. Why I went through all these three things, I'm not going to cover Ember and jQuery at this point of time, but why I wanted to go through these things, there are a few key things that we have always seen in each of them: JavaScript, TypeScript, right? And your learning journey is going to be very easy, again, as I'm saying, right? If you get your JavaScript foundations really done. Before I conclude, I have two things, right? One is, again, repeating the same thing: master your JavaScript, HTML, and CSS if you want to be into the front end side of the world. Understand design patterns. It is important that you understand design pattern. I have always seen people who are during interviews, or sometimes when you are working with somebody, they really know how to do it, but they don't understand the design pattern. They cannot integrate they cannot really combine their thinking. So you have to understand the design patterns, how you implement the learning that you have in those design patterns. JavaScript data structures, we spoke some time back. You need to know these are interview questions that are going to come, right? Languages and frameworks are going to change, evolve. For example, I bought a book on Dojo. I don't even know you guys ever heard about it. In my life, I could not finish that book. I finished one chapter, Dojo was gone, and jQuery came in. And that was my learning in Dojo, one chapter, right? So things will change. But what is going to remain with you forever is your base. So always focus on building that. When you look for a job, think about the target market, prepare accordingly, think about the companies you want to work for, what they use, how you can add value, right, to that. Prepare it that way, and target being a full stack developer. And why I'm pushing this is because of a simple reason. I have one opening, I have two developers, and it's a front end opening, for example, right? And both of them are very, very good. And I don't know who to select out of these two because I cannot add another rack out there. I just have one. Who do I select at that point of time? I will look into somebody who has knowledge on the full stack side, even a bit of it, right? Who has written some APIs using Node helps me out. So those are some of the edges you need to look forward to. You don't have to be a master in backend, but as long as you know how to make a DB call or an API call, how do you interact with a database, it's all good. So this is primarily what I have, but since it's a masterclass, I'm going to share a slide, which is something I believe a lot of people were thinking through. So when I take an interview, in last, as Karan mentioned, right? So I joined Delta when we started, when they came in, and we are a team of around 250 at this point of time. In last 2 years, I would have taken, I don't know, I cannot even count the number of interviews, or I have scanned the number of CVs, right? And I have been going to various campus, for campus recruitment, hired for everything, right? Back end, front end, name it. What I really look forward is how strong the base is. The first thing. Second thing, I always get into a problem solving skill. I give them problems. Sometimes they are you don't have to code in an interview at that point of time, right? I will give you a situation and ask them, how do you think through solving this problem? I look into that, right? The other thing that I look into is innovative as well as growth mindset. Is it thinking out of the box, or is she thinking out of the box? Is it something that I have done in my project and this has to work here, or I can think something better? I sometimes ask somebody a question and they answer, which is good. Then I say, no, how do you do it differently? Right? That comes in. Basic hands-on coding skill is important because, in an interview, you have 1 hour time and you cannot ask somebody to write a application out there. You are limited to spend that amount of time to allow somebody to do some coding. what do you really test at that point of time? You will give some simple algorithm, right? It's not going to be a 10 line or not more than a 10 line uh, code, but this will give you a sense of quality and the thinking process, right? We keep thinking about it because, 10 interviews I take next day, it will be what I have asked will be in the glass door. So even we have to keep thinking about things. So we'll give you simple coding thing, and we look into how you code. It doesn't matter always that you solved it or not, but how you approach it is very important. The other thing I primarily look into is, this person is good, but after 2 years, will I be able to help him or her grow to the next level? Is there enough fire in that person? Team player is a must, right? And these are the questions, these are the things that you find out with experience, right? And when you are taking an interview, you really look into a lot of those aspects as you talk through. They are not questions that you really directly ask. Sometimes you get into some questions and you try to find that out. Communication. Remember, communication is not English. I am good as long as you can communicate the intent that you have to me effectively. And lastly, the attitude. There are times when everything is good, and if you have an attitude problem, the team doesn't work. So 6 and 8 works together. So with this, I would open for questions.
Thank you very much for that insightful session, Mani. I'm sure the audience has seen a lot of value in the variety of different ways you've sliced and diced this topic. We do have one question, which is from Deepak.
Yes, Angular is good for SPA as well, but it becomes a little. It is easier to do it in Vue or React. For example, if I have to develop a website, just a simple website with not much of a complications, I might get into React or Vue. Vue would be a good choice. But if I have to build an application, for example, if I'm building an application which has a lot of to and fro, I cannot have it in a single page. I'll be moving from one page to the other because the requirement is that vast. I would definitely choose Angular because it is structured. It's going to be vast. It is going to be clumsy. Your code is structured. So that is how I look into it. Of course, you write a code in Angular, you write a code in React. Why is React so popular? As I said, right, the enterprise level applications are primarily even now, as I see all the big companies I have worked for, they're all Angular. But if you are talking about most where the complexities are less, it is much easier to work on React than Angular. The learning curve is there, but learning curve for Angular is a little higher, is what I feel. The second thing is very, very important, right? When something gets popular, it grows by number. Primarily, sometimes what happens is, when you are looking for a technology, you are going to build something. And I know that, Ember can be a very good choice for this, for example. We may not select Ember at that point of time, primarily because getting people in the market is going to be difficult. Okay, so yes, Angular is an SPA as well, right? That is always there. What kind of application do I do? What kind of applications do you work in Delta? Okay, so many things. Starts from the e-commerce, from where you go buy tickets, you change your tickets, you upgrade. That is what you look into. That is the simplest thing that I can, which is very, very customer focused, where you can see everything, right? Customers can see. Apart from that, I have a lot of backend teams, right? Which interacts with the front end. for all the data and everything, which are primarily either on Python, Java, and AWS. We use a lot of AWS as well. We are slowly using AWS. We were not earlier. Yeah, we do have RPA, which is about process automation. We use Blue Prism. We use a lot of AI work we do. The models are written in Python. We use AWS SageMaker at this point of time. Chatbot is slightly different. That is, again, a different technology. Okay, I'm trying to just give me a second. I will just expand this. Do you need to update ourselves with new framework coming continuously? No, you don't need to. Do we need to update ourselves with new frameworks coming continuously? You don't need to. As I said, think strategically, right? Not everyone is going to keep changing every time. There are people who keep trying, but if you going to LinkedIn and giving a search on a particular technology will very well give you an idea about how things are moving, right? There are so many technologies, there's so many frameworks I have not even tried or even thought about it, trying at this point of time, be it on any side, right? Some of the things that I would always say, apart from this, have knowledge about cloud, because that is very, very popular. What sort of analytics do you use at Delta? Okay, they're very Delta specific questions. So by analytics, there are so many things, right? We analyze the trending of the tickets to if I talk about simple analysis, to our flight schedule, to anything that you can think of, right? Big analysis could be, to give you an idea about when an airplane has to fly, right? You have to balance the aircraft. There's a lot of algorithm that runs so that we figure out how we can get the best fuel economy. Apart from machine learning is used for various things. Machine learning, we want to put it for many things. There is a lot of machine learning projects that are on, but they are when it comes to machine learning, they are a little bit, I would not really want to talk about it here, or AI, because they are very, very crucial to companies' future. Do you recommend? Okay, I think I'm skipping question. Okay, this is done. How much do you work in front end versus back end? Okay. I'm into management, to be very honest, right? So I have a number of teams. I am hands-on on both sides, front end and back end. I get into issues. I look into the code at times, try to help people. That is how I am. And but in my career, I have done a lot. The entire e-commerce, like when Cisco took over WebEx, the entire front end was led by me for the e-commerce, right? At times, at times I have both, like as a lead, I had both backend and front end teams where we worked closely looking into both the front end code, back end code, switching over. So I cannot really tell you how much at this point of time. It is mostly, I go from it's on a higher level. I did when it comes to work at Delta. But yes, when it comes to me as a person, I do try POCs in my free time on different things and both sides. Do you recommend full stack for a beginner versus experienced? This is a good question. Sometimes what happens is we get somebody who is very, very promising with 1 to 2 years of experience. And we get somebody who is having 5-6 years of experience, right? And we see that, the person with the lower experience has a bigger potential. We may look for that person with the lower experience at that point of time. And this has happened a number of times, by the way. Is there any need to learn Angular if you already know React? No. It is good if you want to if you want to think strategically, as I said, uh, uh, just to know for the sake of knowing it. You really don't have to practice, but at least it helps you talk about it in an interview. All of a sudden it comes up, right? This gives you an edge. This helps us find out that, okay, this guy has not worked on this, but he has innovative mindset. He's curious in learning. He understands how Angular works, right? I'm not going to really dig you at that point of time in Angular, but what gives me the, what will give me, what I'm going to take over is that this guy is good in React, but he also has inclination to understand the different things. At times I ask people during interviews, how do you ramp up yourself? How do you stay up to date? Right, and this is what I would say. If you, maybe you don't practice it every day, but knowing is always good. It will help you understand or answer questions, which is going to help show that you are innovative, you have a growth mindset. For full stack developer role, is Java skill for backend is more preferred compared to Node.js? It's a big it can be a debate. Java is very good, right? If I talk about a couple of things, if you are on-prem, Java works very well. Java Spring Boot has been there for ages now. Spring or Spring Boot, right? But as you move to cloud and you move to serverless architecture, for example, I don't know if you understand what is serverless architecture. Serverless architecture is primarily, let's talk about AWS, right? So I put something, I don't own the server. I put it on a Lambda, right? And I am being charged for how much this service is being used. So I create an API and I put it in this. If I create it in Java and Spring Boot, the boot time of Spring Boot is high. So how it works with Lambda is that, I make a call, it will invoke, it will start that service, and then it will serve me and it will shut down. Next call comes, it will start up, shut down. If we use Java and Spring Boot at that point of time, it is going to be hard because your systems will slow down, right? That is where, you start using Node and Python a lot, because, those are fast. You don't have that lag. Now there is a new framework which is slowly coming up on the Java side, which is called Quarkus, right? Which has improved. The big thing that it is trying to solve is that, the boot time or the start time of the platform is reduced drastically, but it has its own challenge. It takes time. It will need some more time to evolve. But at this point of time, if you look into most of the things we are putting into cloud, right? We are in a cloud journey at this point of time. So whenever we talk about something which we are thinking of putting in cloud and it's going to be in a serverless architecture, we are either choosing Python or Node. Or something which we are going to put late, or something which is very, very, heavy. For example, if I have to build a payment engine, which is going to be very, very, payment is another space I worked in. I work, right? So at that point of time, we are not going to put it there. We need speed. We need speed and everything at that point of time. The server is not going to be up and down every moment. So we still continue Java. Complexity can be handled in React like Angular, as Facebook is built on this. Yes. How can you assume to select among? Okay. So first of all, yes, I agree. Right. Some of the things that we really look into when you build enterprise application is primarily it is always nice to have a structured code, first of all, right? We always get into this question, why not React, why Angular? And a lot of people prefer structured code. I personally prefer structured code. In React, you have everything in a place. As I said, right, it's a single file where your HTML and JavaScript stay together. Whereas in Angular, that is one thing. The second thing is based on, for example, let's talk about the to and fro that comes in. You're making n number of calls. You're integrating with a lot of backend systems, right? Most of the time, of course, you can do it with React. I don't say you cannot, but I think when the things goes really fast, Facebook is vast. I am not saying, but if you really look into look into what it is doing, it's not very complex. If I, in an interview, ask you, you're thinking it is complex now, but if I ask you in an interview, I would like you to design Facebook, how would you go about it? You'll find that the solution is simple. It's not very complex, right? Of course, they have algorithms and everything running. They are using a lot of Vue now. If you see all the new components that are coming in Facebook are using Vue. Even Chrome, if you see all the new things, they're Vue. So things are changing, of course, but from an enterprise side, yes, both work. We have chosen Angular throughout. When it came to very complex applications, which are going to be used with heavy data and a lot of to and fro, in the sense that, and a lot of integrations. We are, yeah, that is what I would say at this point of time. How can we assume okay. Complexity level, other than Vue, both needs there is a learning curve, right? There is a debate that, Angular is harder than React. When I talk to some of the React developers, what do they think? They think that, React is also not that easy. It is also complicated. So I would say both has a learning curve to it, but again, your base is what matters. So before this, I was talking to some of the people, right, who work on different technologies, and basically it's very simple. You go to an interview, you will be asked a question on your base. But yes, again, to answer, both has learning curves, not as simple as Vue. And yeah, now your base is going to define a lot of your how difficult or how it is it going to be. For me, typically, when I was working on both, so personally, if I have to build something, right, which is not a single page, I will choose Angular primarily because I also have a strong backend knowledge, and anyone who is a full stack prefers a structured programming. If you look into Java code, they are always structured. Python codes are structured, right? So that is another inclination that I find a lot of full stack developer has. We tend to get inclined a little more when things are structured. Is React performance faster than Angular? Yes. That is what the statistic says. For me, on my POCs, they are too small to really say that it is that. But what is coming up, by performance, there is something, let me talk about this again, and I'll bring in another technology. So the technology changes. So sometime back, you make a backend call, backend really provides you a lot of data, right? And it comes to the front end. I made a call to give me a PNR number I send a PNR number and to give me something. It gives me huge amount of data, and the front end starts sorting what it needs and displays it in the UI. Now there are technologies, something such as GraphQL is coming up and getting popular, where the front end tells that I just need this from you, right? I need the PNR number. This is the PNR number. All I need is the first name, last name, and the gender of the people, right? You make a call to the same endpoint. The same endpoint is going to return you first name, last name, and only the gender. I make a call to the same endpoint, and next time I request, this is the PNR. I need the first name, last name, gender, and his food preference. The same API is going to return you only 4 things, right? So there are, when you talk about performance, there are various things happening across, right? From end to end, how things work. So GraphQL is playing a good role. It is getting popular. We have been really doing a lot of POCs on GraphQL as well, and we are going to. There are areas where we started using it. So again, I have really not done a performance testing with a heavy load like that. And I really think if I look into the applications that we have worked, it is pretty on the, they are used for different purposes. So I would not really compare, but of course, statistics says that React is faster at times. What companies expect from 2 years of experience in front end? What companies expect? A lot. In Delta, we do have people with 2 years of experience, and they are doing wonderful stuff, right? And 2 years is a good experience for many things. So we have people who are 2 years of experience, who are into development, in front end, back end, both side, right? And there are people who has a lot more experience as well. But I think 2 years plus is a good experience. You're not a fresher. You're not really considered as a fresher. It's a nice place to, 2 to 3, 2 to 4, 5 years is a very good spot. And I do enjoy a lot of interviews at the time with this. Of course, the discussion gets harder and nicer in a different way. But this is the time when you really look into people and you analyze, how hungry this person is, how innovative is the mindset. In what in terms of work, what that's out in Delta? Is it more backend or front end? It's a mix. It's a mix, right? So for us, for only backend does not work. For everything, you need to have a front end. For example, if you talk about something that you see outside, which is delta.com and the mobile SDK or mobile apps that we have, right? Fly Delta. Those are front end, but they are interacting with the backend. Similarly, we have applications which are focused on backend, and the customers are different. The crew, it can be used by the crew members, it can be used by the pilots, right? And so on. We have a chatbot which is front end, but it interacts a lot with the backend as well. So it's always a mix. You cannot either have a front end or a backend or something. I would say it's balanced work, pretty much. Being an Angular or React developer, should you work on Java as full stack? Yes. So learning Java is very complicated. It's not only Java, right? If you really think, I would not recommend that personally, because it takes a lot of time with Java. With Java, you have to learn other frameworks. You have to learn Spring Boot. You have to learn Spring. You have to focus on the other framework that is coming up, which is, the Quarkus, as I said, the GraphQL comes in. They are all implementations, and all these things will come in. It's going to be a lot harder. But if you want to be a full stack, I think Node.js is a very, very easy and a good option. There's a lot of companies who are focusing on getting people on full stack Node.js. Right, and that is the easiest way to go if you're a front-end developer. Python is the second, Java is the hardest. How difficult is the transition from JavaScript to Node.js? See, Java, you can write Node.js using JavaScript or TypeScript, right? And the only problem that we have faced with JavaScript or Node.js is when you try to do you try to go into threading kind of a model, right? Making asynchronous and asynchronous call. And to solve that, we decided to move to, we started using TypeScript primarily because of that reason. So if you have an application where your requirements are not like that, JavaScript works wonders. If you look into AWS, right? AWS says that, it prefers Node.js written in JavaScript, but it works with TypeScript because the compiled version is TypeScript, JavaScript. But that is the recommendation from AWS on their. If you open AWS and say supported languages for Node.js on serverless, they will specifically mention JavaScript. Right, and yes, that is why I have been focusing on, right? There will be certain tweaks and turns, but it is as long as your JavaScript function foundation is good, it is pretty straightforward. Performance wise, how do you compare React versus Angular versus Vue? Vue is faster. That is what the market is saying. not done much on Vue, but all the companies, if you really go to if you do an inspect on Google Chrome, or if you for any of these things, you will realize that majority of these components that are being written, all the new components that are written in Facebook, they are using React. They are actually writing that using Vue. Same goes with Google. All the new things that are coming up are written in Vue because they're easy. You can make a component, plug it in, they are fast. And that is why I put Vue, though the number of job openings are also quite less at this point of time, but it is looking like it is picking up very well. Would Angular be best suited for e-commerce and on front side as compared to Next.js, which is built on React? I need to do more research on this question, Deepak. I have not really worked on Next.js, right? So I'll take it, and if there is a way, I will definitely send you an answer on that. As you grow in experience, is it good to limit yourself to front end? No, don't ever do that. As you grow in experience, broaden your skill is the key, right? There is a difference in the way we work in India versus we work in the US. In US, you will see that people with 20 years of experience, they're doing software development. Our society, you want to, you can do it. Many companies like Delta, we are okay if somebody wants to spend the entire life doing development, right? We have people with 20 years of experience and they're deep into some technologies, but not always, right? So some of the things that you need to grow, as you grow higher, the expectation also changes, right? And you may be an expert in the front end. What is expected out of you as you grow is your wit in technology. You should be able to spend time and tell the different technologies. You have to slowly understand how the hardware works, how the network works. You are in a call, you'll be called in a you will always be as you grow in the thing. When I was a software developer or a tech lead, till that point I was not really focused into understanding the network, understanding the firewalls, understanding how a data proxy would work, how the security aspect works, and so on. But as you grow, this becomes a part of your life, right? So you don't have to be hands-on on all this. I'm not hands-on. If you ask me to configure an APG, I may not be able to do. If you ask me to configure a data power proxy, I will not be able to do, but I know exactly what it does, right? What are the advantages? So those things you will always have to increase and make sure that you're up to date. That is needed, right? If you intend to be hands-on, yes, there are people. So of late we hired a person who has quite over 10 years of experience, and he wanted to be hardcore into coding, and we are good with that. Oh yes, do 10 plus years of people? Absolutely, there are. We expect our tech leads, which ranges from somewhere around 7-8 to around 12-13 or more. In fact, we have, and we expect our tech leads to do coding. Sometimes, if you are invited for a Delta interview, for example, you will be there are areas where you will be interviewed by the ADs, and if you talk to them, ADs are kind of architects. We just define them in a different. We say in Delta we call ADs advisory developers, which are equivalent to architects, but they will go hands-on with you on coding. Okay. I would say both, right? I would not say it's a front end has a better or a back end has a better opening. When we opened up, we typically had both of the openings. If I compare, say, hardcore backend versus front end, I would say there's pretty much the similar things. Backend might have slightly but depends on the technology stack also, right? Sometimes on the backend side, there is a lot of things that happens. For example, how would you define, how do you call, if I broadly divide things, right? How would you say the RPA, right? Robotic process automation. Is it a front end or a back end? But we use tools. So I think that way, if you see, backend is wider, so the openings will be wider. But if you really try to compare apple to apple, creating APIs versus a front end, I think that will be equal, pretty much. Would you recommend to use Angular for e-commerce and SEO development in front end web application? So then with the backend technology. Yeah. So again, let me just, I have a backup slide. Let me bring it up. So some of the things that we look into is the popularity and supportability, right? How popular is that language? How supportability, which means that, if I'm using a language, what is the documentation level? For example, the biggest problem of Vue, I forgot to mention, is that most of the documentations are in Chinese. So your documentation is going to be a problem. So if you're non-Chinese, you have a little harder time. That is one thing, right? Sometimes that really drives quite a lot of decisions. Your market, the availability of resources in your organization who can really, get things done for you. If the organization is inclined towards Angular, right? Moving to React is reskilling everyone, right? And what do I really get out of it? Do I really get a benefit? What costs me more is a question. And both are good, right? Both are going to work. You create a single page application or you create a e-commerce, like for us, it is in Angular, as I said, or anything. Both can work. But if I have no people in React and everyone is in Angular, moving or building another thing that I need and going to React makes sense? Not always. Okay, I'll finish on the backend technologies. We use all the three. We use Node when it is serverless, when we or Python when it is serverless, and for any other thing we use Java. Which are the common used frameworks in front end? From for fresher, just focus on basics. No one will go to framework. I have at least not gone to framework level for freshers. For fresher, what I need is, with 1 or 2 year experience is purely your basics. Framework is the last thing I'll get into, because those will just happen to you. What is the future of React after 10 years from now? It's like jQuery, I would say. There will be something which will be better, but the amount of things that we are doing in React, that will need to stay there, right? And maybe there will be companies which will slowly shift to the new one, but there will be continuous work on the React after 10 years, or for Angular as well. But the way jQuery is slowly declining, it will also. That is what I can say. It has always changed. That is how you talk about anything except Java, which has really dominated for a long time.